Jefferson nickels have been in our pockets and purses for decades, often overlooked as just everyday change, but hidden among the billions of nickels struck, there are a few rare pieces that can transform an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. Some of these nickels carry secret minting errors. Some were struck in very limited numbers, and some have unique features that make them worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars to collectors. Imagine holding what looks like just a 5-cent coin only to discover it could pay for a vacation or even more. Today we dive deep into 5 of the rarest and most valuable Jefferson nickels ever made coins that could be hiding in your piggy bank coin jar or pocket right now. What if I told you that one of the most iconic American coins carries a mystery that has fascinated collectors for nearly a century? The 1937 Buffalo nickel, a coin born in the Great Depression that hides both beauty and error, worth thousands of dollars today. Stay tuned, because this legendary coin might be sitting unnoticed in your collection, and it could change your life. The story of the Buffalo nickel, also known as the Indian head nickel, is one of the most remarkable chapters in American coinage history. It begins in the early 20th century when the United States sought to create coinage that reflected the heritage, culture, and identity of the nation. Unlike the earlier Liberty head designs, the Buffalo nickel introduced a bold vision crafted by sculptor James Earl Fraser, a student of the famous Augustus St. Gaudens, who himself had revolutionized American coin design. Fraser wanted to capture the rugged spirit of the American frontier and the enduring image of Native Americans and the great American bison, and so in 1913, the Buffalo nickel was born. The design featured on the obverse a Native American profile, strong-weathered and deeply detailed. Fraser stated that this portrait was not of a single person, but rather a composite of several Native leaders who had modeled for him, including Irontail, a chief of the Lakota Sioux, Two Moons, a Cheyenne chief, and possibly Chief John Bigtree of the Seneca tribe. This profile stood as a tribute to the first Americans, to their dignity and strength in the face of history. On the reverse of the coin, Fraser placed the American bison, an animal that symbolized the untamed West power and endurance. The model for the buffalo was said to be Black Diamond, a bison from the Central Park Zoo in New York. Though there is some debate about whether Fraser used other specimens, from its first release in 1913, the Buffalo nickel became an instant icon, but it was also plagued with challenges. The design, though beautiful, wore down quickly, and circulation details, such as the date and the lettering, would fade, making it difficult to identify the coin over time. Still, the coin remained in production. From 1913 until 1938, a run of 25 years, that saw the United States through periods of prosperity and hardship. By 1937, the Buffalo nickel had been circulating for nearly a quarter-century. America at this time was still struggling with the effects of the Great Depression. Millions of people were unemployed, bread lines were long, and economic confidence was shaken. Yet the coinage of the nation continued to flow through the hands of ordinary citizens every day, and among them the Buffalo nickel stood out for its distinctive design. The 1937 issue was struck at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint producing coins that collectors today examine for rarity, condition, and errors. The most famous of all Buffalo nickels is connected to the year 1937. It is the legendary 1937 D3-legged Buffalo nickel. This coin arose from an accident at the Denver Mint. During the die polishing process, a mint worker overpolished one of the reverse dies, and in doing so he accidentally removed the front leg of the buffalo on the coin. As a result, coins struck from this die show a bison that appears to stand on only 3 legs. This error went unnoticed for some time, and the coins entered circulation just like any other nickel. It was only later that collectors discovered the mistake, and the 1937 D3-legged buffalo became one of the most famous and sought-after errors in all of numismatics. The 3-legged buffalo is fascinating not only for its rarity, But for what it represents, it shows how even in the highly controlled environment of a government mint, human error and mechanical imperfection could create a variety that would capture the imagination of collectors for decades. In high-grade condition, the 1937 D3 legged buffalo can fetch thousands of dollars at auction, sometimes even tens of thousands, depending on the state of preservation. Examples in mint state condition are treasures few ever see in person. Beyond the three-legged variety, the regular 1937 buffalo nickels also hold historical value. The Philadelphia mint coins were produced without a mint mark and are common in circulated grades. The Denver and San Francisco issues are scarcer, especially in higher mint state grades, and collectors prize them accordingly. The design itself remained unchanged from earlier years, though by 1937 the wear problems were still evident. Dates would often be worn away in circulation, leading to countless dateless buffalo nickels that exist today. The cultural importance of the buffalo nickel cannot be overstated. It was one of the first coins that truly represented a uniquely American identity. The Native American obverse acknowledged the first people of the land, while the buffalo reverse honored the wildlife and the frontier that defined much of the national mythology. School children grew up with the coin in their pockets. Merchants and customers handled it daily, and for many, the design became a symbol of strength, resilience, and the American spirit. By 1938, the United States Mint decided to retire the buffalo nickel after its statutory 25-year run. It was replaced by the Jefferson nickel designed by Felix Schlag, which remains in circulation in various forms. To this day, the final buffalo nickel struck in 1938 marked the end of an era, but the coin never faded from memory. Instead, it grew in legend, with collectors treasuring its artistry and searching tirelessly for the rarest varieties, especially the 1937 D3-legged. Numismatists often reflect on the buffalo nickel as both a technical challenge and an artistic triumph. The design may have been impractical for heavy circulation, but its beauty and symbolism elevated it above ordinary coinage for the 1937 buffalo nickel. Specifically, collectors look not only at mint marks and errors, but also at strike quality, luster, and detail. Because the dies often produced weak strikes, coins with strong details command significant premiums. The buffalo nickel era also influenced later coinage and inspired commemorative issues. In the decades that followed, the image of the bison reappeared on modern nickels and commemorative coins. The Native American portrait has been echoed in medallic art and museum displays. The legacy of the 1937 buffalo nickel continues in these tributes, a reminder of its enduring place in the story of American money. As the years have passed, the 1937 buffalo nickel has grown ever more desirable. Collectors hunt for full-date examples with strong strikes and clean surfaces. The three-legged Denver variety remains one of the holy grails of error. Collecting stories abound of people finding them in old jars of change or inherited collections. Each discovery sparking excitement and wonder at how such a simple coin could hold such value. What if I told you that a small 5-cent coin minted nearly 90 years ago holds secrets of history, art, and fortune? A coin that carries the face of America's first people and the strength of the great American bison? A coin struck in the shadow of the Great Depression when every cent mattered to struggling families? A coin that in some cases was created with a mistake so unusual that it transformed an ordinary nickel into a legendary treasure, worth thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars today. This is the story of the buffalo nickel from 1937, one of the most iconic coins in American history, and one of the most beloved by collectors worldwide. In this journey, we will uncover its origins, the vision of its designer, the cultural meaning of its imagery, the economic backdrop of the time, the minting process that created it, the famous three-legged error, and the way this single coin has shaped collecting for generations. So stay with me as we step into the world of the buffalo nickel and reveal why the 1937 issue remains one of the most powerful symbols in all of United States coinage. The buffalo nickel was born from a movement in the early 20th century to beautify American coinage, President Theodore Roosevelt had called for a renaissance in coin design, believing that the money of a great nation should reflect its spirit and its identity. Artists, such as Augustus St. Gaudens, Charles Barber, and James Earl Fraser, played a role in shaping this vision. Fraser himself had grown up on the western frontier. He had seen Native Americans in person. He had admired the rugged bison that once roamed the plains in vast herds, and he understood the importance of linking a nation's money to its people and its land. When the buffalo nickel was first struck in 1913, it was unlike any coin that had come before it. The Native American portrait was not a generic figure of liberty, as earlier coins had shown. It was a powerful, realistic face marked with strength, dignity, and age. The reverse showed the mighty buffalo, massive, heavy, and grounded, a reminder of the wilderness that was rapidly disappearing under expansion and industry. Have you ever held a small 5-cent piece in your hand and wondered if it carried with it a hidden story, one that goes beyond the everyday exchange of goods and services, one that reveals a piece of American history, artistry, and economic design? The Jefferson nickel of 1975 is one such coin, a coin that on the surface might seem ordinary because millions were struck and used in circulation, but upon deeper exploration, it unfolds into a remarkable journey through numismatic history, minting, practices, and the American spirit that continued to define coinage during the mid-1970s. The 1975 Jefferson nickel belongs to a long line of coins that started in 1938 when the United States Mint decided to replace the buffalo nickel with a design honoring the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, and the structure most closely associated with him, Monticello, the neoclassical home he designed in Virginia. The nickel design, created by Felix Schlag, became one of the longest-running coin designs in American history, and by 1975 it had already been in production for nearly 4 decades through war shortages, minting changes, and countless economic shifts. The year 1975 itself is significant in American numismatic history, because it stands right before one of the most important bicentennial celebrations in United States coinage, the bicentennial of 1976, that introduced new quarter, half dollar, and dollar coin designs. However, the Jefferson nickel was not changed. For the bicentennial, instead, it retained its classic Schlag design and continued to be a workhorse coin in circulation. The 1975 nickel thus represents a fascinating point in the timeline. It was a coin bridging the years before the bicentennial, without fanfare, yet maintaining the legacy of Jefferson on the 5-cent piece. In 1975, the nickel was struck at 3 main facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Philadelphia produced the 1975 Jefferson nickels without a mint mark. Denver used the D mint mark, and San Francisco issued proof coins with the S mint mark. These variations are critical to collectors because while millions were struck, not all coins survived in pristine condition. Circulation wear quickly reduced sharpness of design, and many coins ended up lost, damaged, or melted. The proof issues from San Francisco are especially sought after because they were not meant for circulation but for collectors and were struck with polished dies, giving them mirror-like finishes that stand in contrast to regular issues. The composition of the 1975 Jefferson nickel remained the same as it had been since the end of World War II. It was made of a copper-nickel alloy consisting of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This gave it durability and a distinctive silvery appearance. During the war years, the alloy had been temporarily changed to include silver due to wartime shortages. But by 1975, the original copper-nickel formula had long been restored. This composition was chosen not only for its resilience but also for the way it worked in vending machines, which became an increasingly important factor in coin design during the 20th century. From a design perspective, the 1975 Jefferson nickel carried Schlag's classic portrait of Jefferson on the obverse, his profile facing left with the word "Liberty" to the left, the motto, "In God We Trust," and the date, 1975, clearly visible. The reverse showed Monticello Jefferson's home with its domed architecture and neoclassical balance. The inscriptions Monticello e Pluribus Unum and United States of America. 5 cents framed the design. This design had remained largely unchanged since 1938, though over the years slight modifications had been made to improve detail and clarity. Collectors today analyze the 1975 Jefferson nickel, not just for its basic history, but also for the many varieties and errors that arose in its production. The mid-1970s saw high mintages, but also saw instances of striking anomalies, including off-center strikes, weak strikes, and die breaks that created fascinating error coins, which now command significant interest in the numismatic market. Proof nickels from San Francisco in deep cameo condition, where the raised design appears frosty against mirror fields, are particularly desirable and can bring high values when graded by professional services. The coin's historical context adds another layer of richness to its story. America in 1975 was a nation in transition, still healing from the Vietnam War, adjusting to economic pressures of inflation and oil crises, and looking forward to the bicentennial celebration of 1976. Coins like the 1975 nickel served not just as currency, but as daily reminders of continuity and tradition. Jefferson's face on the coin reflected ideals of liberty, knowledge, and innovation, which were especially resonant during times of challenge. The nickel was small, yet symbolic, an object of everyday life. Carrying profound meaning for 2 hours, one can trace the path of this coin from its origins in Schlag's winning design in 1938 through the wartime silver nickels of the 1940s into the post-war era of mass circulation and vending machine culture. And finally into the mid-1970s, when the United States Mint continued to strike billions of coins annually. The 1975 Jefferson nickel is a chapter in this evolving narrative, a coin that, despite its abundance, retains importance for collectors, historians, and ordinary Americans who unknowingly carried a piece of that story in their pockets. When examining the 1975 nickel in a professional numismatic context, we must also look at the grading scale used to assess its condition. Coins range from poor and heavily worn to mint state examples with full steps on Monticello, a designation that refers to the clarity of the steps on the building's design. These full-step nickels are highly prized because they demonstrate a strong strike and preservation. From circulation in 1975, full-step examples are scarcer and command premiums because most nickels from that year did not survive with such detail intact. The lasting legacy of the 1975 Jefferson nickel is not that it introduced a dramatic new design or commemorated a historic event, but rather that it quietly carried forward the tradition of Jefferson's place on the nickel as America prepared for its bicentennial. The coin is a reminder that even in years of continuity, coins reflect the values, priorities, and craftsmanship of their time. Collectors treasure it for its varieties, proof issues, and condition rarities, while historians see it as part of a broader narrative of American coinage. So when you hold a 1975 Jefferson nickel in your hand, you are not just holding a small 5-cent piece. You are holding a continuation of a story that began in 1938. You are holding a coin that passed through millions of transactions in an America that was changing rapidly. You are holding a piece of artistry struck in copper and nickel that connected past, present, and future, and you are holding a symbol of Jefferson's enduring legacy on American money. Imagine holding a simple 5-cent piece in your hand and realizing that it tells a story of American history, design, legacy, minting technology, and a continuing journey that stretches back to 1938. The Jefferson nickel has been a constant presence in American coinage, and in 1996, the United States Mint continued that tradition with a coin that at first glance may appear ordinary. Yet beneath its surface, it holds remarkable importance both to collectors and historians alike, the 1996 Jefferson. Nickel represents a point in the series where decades of tradition, design, and production merged with the evolving technological advances of the U.S. Mint, and it is a coin that speaks to stability in an era of change. To understand the 1996 Jefferson nickel, we must first revisit the origins of the series itself, created in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel. The Jefferson nickel was designed by Felix Schlag, whose portrait of President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the depiction of Monticello on the reverse became enduring symbols of the American 5-cent piece. Schlag's design underwent subtle modifications over time, yet it remained largely intact through the late 20th century, and the 1996 issue is part of that long, continuous chapter. By the 1990s, the Jefferson nickel had already been in circulation for nearly 6 decades, and the design was deeply familiar to generations of Americans. The obverse displayed the left-facing bust of Thomas Jefferson with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date, while the reverse continued to feature Monticello Jefferson's Virginia estate with the inscriptions, "E Pluribus Unum, Monticello 5 cents," and "United States of America." The 1996 nickel carried this same iconic design, making it instantly recognizable to the millions who used it in everyday commerce, and yet for numismatists and specialists, this coin offers far more than simple familiarity. The minting of the 1996 nickel took place at multiple facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each contributing their own distinct mint marks and production characteristics. Philadelphia struck coins without a mint mark, as was customary since 1980. Denver coins carried the D mint mark, and San Francisco issued proof coins for collectors marked with the S mint mark. The proof issues are especially significant because they represent the highest level of craftsmanship, from the mint struck on specially prepared dies and planchets to create mirror-like surfaces and frosted devices. Proof nickels from 1996 embody the artistry and precision that serious collectors seek in terms of production numbers. The 1996 Jefferson nickel was minted in the hundreds of millions, making it a common coin in circulation. However, the details of strike quality, mint luster, and die state all contribute to the collector value. High-grade examples, particularly those in mint state 67 or higher, are significantly scarcer and prized by numismatists. The San Francisco proofs are even more carefully preserved, and examples in flawless condition graded PR70 Deep Cameo are among the most desirable. But what makes the 1996 nickel particularly interesting is the context of its time. The mid-1990s marked a period of change in the world of American coinage. Technology at the United States Mint was advancing rapidly, with improvements in die making and quality control, allowing for sharper strikes and more consistent production. At the same time, the coin collecting community was growing with renewed interest, fueled by the rise of third-party grading services, which provided collectors with standardized evaluations of condition and authenticity. This trend meant that ordinary circulating issues, like the 1996 nickel, could be examined under new scrutiny, with collectors searching for varieties, errors, and high-grade specimens. Error coins from 1996 have drawn special attention among collectors. Examples include off-center strikes, clipped planchets, double dies, and other minting anomalies. Each error transforms a common coin into a rare collectible, commanding much higher values and serving as a reminder of the unpredictable human and mechanical factors at play within the minting process. These errors give the 1996 nickel an added layer of intrigue, making each surviving piece a potential treasure waiting to be discovered in pocket change. The design itself invites further appreciation. Thomas Jefferson, as the third President of the United States, author of the Declaration of Independence and a central figure in American history, has long been honored through his presence on the nickel. And Monticello, his architectural masterpiece, reflects his vision of art, science, and nation-building. The continuation of Schlag's design in 1996 connects the coin directly to this legacy, reinforcing the cultural and educational value of even the most ordinary 5-cent piece. Collectors examine the 1996 Jefferson nickel they often look to, grade rarity and strike quality. Yet the deeper story lies in how this coin connects to the larger narrative of American numismatics. It stands at the crossroads between the old and the new, continuing a design that had endured since 1938, while existing just a few years before the dramatic changes that would come in the early 2000s with the Westward Journey nickel series and the eventual redesign of Jefferson's portrait. The 1996 nickel therefore represents both continuity and the threshold of transition in circulation. The 1996 nickel served its basic purpose faithfully. Millions of Americans used it in daily life, in vending machines at grocery stores, and in countless small transactions. Its durability and practicality were a testament to the efficiency of American coinage. Yet, in collections, it became a point of study, a piece where condition rarity and even the smallest variations in die production could make the difference between a common coin and a highly sought-after prize. Looking at the 1996 Jefferson nickel today, we can appreciate it not just as currency, but as a snapshot of numismatic history. It belongs to an era where coinage was stable and consistent, yet where collectors were beginning to view even modern issues with a sharper eye. It is a coin that tells a story of design endurance, minting progress, and collector enthusiasm. Its role in the larger Jefferson nickel series is a vital one, representing both the longevity of Schlag's vision and the ongoing relevance of Jefferson and Monticello in American cultural memory. Thus, the 1996 Jefferson nickel is more than a simple piece of change. It is a link in the long chain of American coinage history. It is a testament to the artistry of Felix Schlag, the technological capabilities of the U.S. Mint in the 1990s, and the unbroken tradition of honoring Jefferson's legacy through numismatic design for the collector, the historian, and the casual observer alike. The 1996 nickel offers a chance to hold history in the palm of your hand and to see in its familiar surfaces a deeper story of America's past, present, and future. Imagine holding in your hand a simple 5-cent piece minted in 1974, a coin that millions of people passed through their daily lives, never realizing the fascinating history, the artistry, the economic background, and the small but meaningful changes that made this Jefferson nickel not just money, but a part of American culture and heritage. Welcome to the story of the 1974 Jefferson nickel, a coin that continues the proud legacy of American numismatics and reflects the journey of a nation through its economy, politics, and artistry. To understand the Jefferson nickel of 1974, we must first step back and remember why the Jefferson nickel series was introduced in the first place. In 1938, the United States Mint replaced the Buffalo nickel with a new design honoring Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, and one of the most influential figures in American history. The decision came after a design competition in which Felix Schlag, a German-born American sculptor, submitted. The winning entry, Schlag's design, featured a left-facing portrait of Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his Virginia estate, on the reverse, and this design would endure with minor modifications for decades. By the time we reach 1974, the Jefferson nickel had been in circulation for 36 years, and the coin continued to be an essential part of daily commerce. It was struck at 3 different mints: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. The Philadelphia and Denver facilities produced the regular circulation strikes, while San Francisco issued proof coins for collectors. The 1974 nickel had a mintage running into the hundreds of millions, making it widely available across the country. But even within this enormous production, there are subtleties, differences, and interesting details that make the coin worthy of a deeper look. The obverse design of the 1974 nickel continues to display the portrait of Jefferson. Though over the decades, the detail of Schlag's original artistry had worn down through repeated die use and slight modifications, Jefferson's features appear bold yet softened compared to earlier strikes. The inscriptions include, "In God we trust," to the left of the portrait, "Liberty," with the date 1974 to the right, and the mint mark, if present just to the right of Jefferson's ponytail. The placement of the mint mark in 1974 is a notable detail, because beginning in 1968, the mint mark was moved to the obverse side beneath. The date before that, it had traditionally appeared on the reverse. The reverse of the 1974 nickel still depicts Monticello Jefferson's iconic home in Charlottesville, Virginia. The design shows the neoclassical architecture with its columned front. And central dome beneath the building is the word Monticello, followed by the denomination 5 cents, and the country name United States of America. Above the image is the motto E pluribus unum. The design, though simple, carries a stately appearance and has remained a recognizable symbol of American coinage for generations. From a technical perspective, the 1974 Jefferson nickel was struck in a composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This metallic makeup had been used since the end of World War II, when the special wartime alloy of silver, manganese, and copper was discontinued. The return to the copper-nickel blend made the coin durable with a silver-like appearance that has allowed nickels to stand. The test of time in circulation. The weight of the coin remained at 5 grams with a diameter of 21.2 millimeters and a plain edge, all of which has been consistent throughout most of the Jefferson nickel series in terms of mintages. The 1974 Philadelphia nickel saw a production of hundreds of millions, while the Denver Mint also struck large numbers, making the coin widely accessible. The San Francisco Mint created proof coins of the highest quality using specially prepared dies and planchets to produce mirror-like fields and frosted devices. These proof coins were intended for collectors and not for general circulation, making them desirable pieces today. The 1970s were an important period for American coinage, and the 1974 nickel must be seen. Within this context, the country was experiencing economic challenges, inflationary pressures, and changes in daily life. The use of coinage remained central to commerce, vending machines, transit fares, and countless small transactions. The nickel especially played a vital role since it bridged the gap between the penny and higher denominations in daily trade. From a collector's perspective, the 1974 Jefferson nickel might appear common at first glance because of its large mintages. However, condition rarity plays a huge role. Coins that survive in uncirculated grades, particularly those with sharp strikes and attractive luster, are always of interest. Proof versions, especially deep cameo examples from San Francisco, are considered premium by collectors. Another fascinating aspect lies in error coins of 1974. As with any large-scale production, mint errors such as off-center strikes, double strikes, die cracks, or planchet flaws exist, and these mistakes can transform a common nickel into a rare collectible commanding much higher value in the numismatic marketplace. The grading of Jefferson nickels, including the 1974 issue, is an area of study in itself. Professional grading companies evaluate strike, sharpness, luster surface, preservation, and overall eye appeal. The highest levels of mint state condition can drastically increase the desirability of a coin. For example, a 1974 nickel graded at MS66 or higher may be far scarcer than its huge mintage. Suggests, due to the difficulty of preserving coins free of contact marks and wear, when examining proof nickels of 1974, collectors pay close attention to cameo and deep cameo contrasts, where the frosted portrait and Monticello stand out sharply. Against the reflective mirror-like fields, the development of this proof quality was a hallmark of San Francisco production in the 1970s, and a deep cameo example from 1974 is highly sought after today. Beyond the numismatic factors, the 1974 nickel is a window into American life. At the time, it was the age of post-Vietnam society. The Watergate scandal was shaking. The political system, inflation was impacting the economy, and the American people were dealing with rapid cultural change. Yet through all this, the Jefferson nickel remained a constant symbol of stability in everyday commerce. To put the 1974 nickel into perspective, Within the larger series, it represents a continuation of the long-standing Schlag design, which would remain in place until 2004, when the Westward Journey nickel series introduced new designs marking the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Thus, the 1974 issue falls within what many collectors call the classic era of Jefferson nickels, an era defined by traditional imagery and widespread use. For the advanced collector varieties of 1974, nickels can offer further intrigue. Die varieties, including repunched mint marks, doubled dies, and other small details are studied carefully by specialists. Some varieties may only be known to a few experts, but they highlight the complexity and craftsmanship involved in minting millions of coins every year. The Jefferson nickel series has long been a favorite for beginning collectors because the coins are affordable, widely available, and historically rich. A complete date and mint mark collection of Jefferson nickels provides a journey through American history from the late 1930s to the modern day, and the 1974 nickel holds its rightful place within. This narrative, while perhaps not rare in absolute numbers, it becomes significant as part of the long continuum of American coinage. As we reflect on the 1974 nickel, we realize that every coin has two stories. One is the technical story of its creation, the dies, the mints, the alloys, the mintages, the grades, and the varieties. The other is the human story of the time period, the hands it passed through, the economic backdrop, the historical events shaping the nation together. These stories make the Jefferson nickel not just a 5-cent piece, but a living artifact of American life. So when you hold a 1974 Jefferson nickel, remember that it is more than spare change. It is a link to Thomas Jefferson, to Felix Schlag, to the mints that produced it, and to the millions of Americans who used it in their daily lives. It is a coin that may seem ordinary, but carries with it extraordinary meaning in the world of numismatics and history, and that is the power of a simple nickel. Imagine holding in your hand a simple nickel dated 1990. At first glance, it may seem like just another coin in the long series of Jefferson nickels that Americans used in everyday life. Yet behind this coin, there is a rich story that connects history, design, economics, minting technology, and even the culture of late 20th century America. The Jefferson nickel, first introduced in 1938, had by 1990 already been in production for more than 50 years. It replaced the Buffalo nickel and brought with it the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, designed by Felix Schlag, whose winning design became a cornerstone of modern U.S. coinage by 1990. This design had become so recognizable that people often overlooked its details, but for collectors and historians, the 1990 nickel offers more than just a date. It offers a window into a time of transition. The late 1980s and early 1990s were a period of global change. The Cold War was drawing to an end. Technology was rapidly advancing, and the United States Mint was undergoing its own set of improvements and adjustments in production methods. Coinage had to remain reliable and efficient, while also serving as a reflection of national identity. The Jefferson nickel was no exception, and the 1990 edition represents a coin struck with the precision of modern minting machinery, yet carrying a design that dated back over half a century. The obverse of the coin featured the classic profile of Thomas Jefferson facing left. His portrait had been refined slightly over the decades due to die wear and technological adjustments, but the essence of Schlag's original design remained. Jefferson's hair detail, his coat collar, and the word liberty, in his own handwriting style, continued to define the look of the coin. Above Jefferson's head read, "In God We Trust," while to the left appeared the word liberty. Followed by the year 1990, mint marks P, D, or S would indicate whether the coin came from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. Each of these mints played a role in the production of nickels during that year. Philadelphia without a mint mark, Denver with a D, and San Francisco with an S, producing proof issues for collectors. On the reverse of the coin stood the image of Monticello Jefferson's Virginia estate, an iconic building that symbolized Jefferson's architectural talents as well as his vision for the young republic. The word Monticello appeared beneath the building, with the denomination 5 cents directly under it, and the words United States of America framing the base above Monticello. The Latin phrase e pluribus unum out of many one reminded citizens of the unifying principle of the nation. What makes the 1990 Jefferson nickel particularly significant is not a dramatic design change or a rare error, but rather its placement in the continuum of American coinage. By this time, the nickel had become a workhorse of commerce, billions of them circulated through the economy. But for collectors, subtle details became important. The quality of the strike, the sharpness of Jefferson's hair, and the steps of Monticello were often scrutinized. Collectors sought full-step examples on the reverse, where the steps of Monticello were fully struck, a feature that was not always easy to find. Even with modern minting technology, these full-step nickels became highly prized in 1990. The Philadelphia and Denver mints produced massive numbers of nickels, intended for everyday circulation. Yet the San Francisco Mint produced proof nickels with mirror-like fields and frosted details sold to collectors in proof sets. These proof coins demonstrated the highest quality of mint craftsmanship at the time, while the circulation strikes reflected the efficiency of mass production. The economy of the early 1990s also added context. The United States was entering a recession, and yet coins like the nickel continued to serve as reliable symbols of stability. People trusted their change even as larger financial systems faced uncertainty. Holding a 1990 nickel meant holding a piece of continuity, a link between past and present eras and varieties, also make the 1990 Jefferson nickel interesting for collectors. While the year did not produce the dramatic double dies or overdates that other years sometimes did, there were still small minting anomalies such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or weak steps at Monticello. These coins, though often overlooked, in circulation became treasures for collectors who understood that mistakes in mass production added uniqueness to otherwise common coins. The Jefferson nickel itself had already lived through decades of American history from World War II, when its composition was changed to include silver due to wartime needs to the post-war boom of the 1950s and 1960s. By 1990, it was clear that the design was becoming one of the longest-running in U.S. coinage history. Second only to the Lincoln cent, the fact that Jefferson's portrait and Monticello remained unchanged for so long spoke to the enduring legacy of the design, for a coin that circulated in the pockets of everyday Americans. The 1990 nickel also carried cultural significance. Children might have used it in vending machines. Families may have tossed them into payphones. Drivers dropped them into toll booths. Its purchasing power, though modest, symbolized the daily rhythm of American life. Coins like this traveled across states, into stores, restaurants, and households, silently recording the movement of a nation. When we think about the artistry of Felix Schlag's design, it is important to remember that Monticello was not just an architectural achievement. It was a symbol of Jefferson's vision for an agrarian republic. His ideas about democracy and liberty were tied into his home, and by placing Monticello on the nickel, the mint tied those ideals directly into American commerce. Every transaction with a nickel carried a reminder of Jefferson's contributions to the country. By 1990, numismatics, the study of coins, was also experiencing growth. Coin shows, coin clubs, and publications provided collectors with knowledge and community. Jefferson nickels were popular among collectors because they were affordable, widely available, and yet full of variety. Collecting a complete set from 1938 to the present was a challenge that appealed to many, and the 1990 coin was a required piece in that long chain. Looking at the broader historical picture, 1990 was a year of transition. The Berlin Wall had recently fallen, and the Soviet Union was on the verge of collapse. The United States was preparing to enter the Gulf War. Technology was moving toward the computer age, and yet coins remained a constant. A nickel, dated 1990, was a product of that exact moment, a small artifact that carries with it the story of both stability and change. For collectors today, the 1990 Jefferson nickel may not command high values in circulated condition since billions were produced, but high-grade examples, proof strikes, and those with full steps can attract significant attention in the numismatic market. They serve as a reminder that even common coins can become important when placed in the right context. So when you hold a 1990 Jefferson nickel, you are not simply looking at a piece of metal. You are holding the continuation of a tradition that began in 1938. You are holding the artistry of Felix Schlag preserved. Across decades, you are holding a coin that passed through the lives of ordinary Americans during a time of great change in the world, and you are holding a small but meaningful piece of history that continues to tell its story to anyone willing to listen.